Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to today's Daf Hayimi Maseches TEMURAH Daf Chaf. We begin on the bottom of Yotes Amud Beis, on the very last line. Tanu Rabbanan. This links into yesterday's discussion. A fellow sets aside an animal for a korban. Problem is, he did it for an asham, which is meant to be a zachar, but he has an akeva. What happens to that behemoth? So according to the Chachamim, according to Shitas Tanakam in the Mishnah, despite the fact that it's unsuitable to be used as a korban directly because it's an akeva, nevertheless, it has an element of kedushas haguf. It becomes somewhat inherently kaddish. So it rises to the level of kedushas haguf, which is a notch above just merely, monetarily kaddish kedushas damim. And in fact, you can't just sell it. You have to await the arrival of a mum, which will now downgrade it back to kedushas damim, which allows you to sell it and then use the money to buy a korban. That is Shitas Tanakam. Rabbi Shimon disagrees. He says, you be mafresh and a keva for an asham? It's a non-starter. It will never attain kedushas haguf. It's not kosher for its intended purpose. So at most, it gets kedushas damim. It's kaddish for its value, which means you could just sell it, convert it into money, and use the money for purchase of a korban. Okay, so now comes a similar discussion. Tanu Rabbanan. Hamagdish nekeva. The fellow chose an nekeva animal and assigned it either as an oila, or a pesach, or an asham, all three of which need to be a zachar. So it's the wrong gender. Hamagdish nekeva lo'ilosai. We turn to the next amid. Lepischa le'asham. Nevertheless, it acquires an element of kedushas haguf, and therefore, likewise, oisa temurah. You can generate a temurah from that animal which has kedushas haguf. Rabbi Shimon Aimer, no. Really, it depends, he says. Lo'ila soya oisa temurah. In the first case, where it's an oila, there it does attain an element of kedushas haguf. We discussed this yesterday. We'll discuss it soon again. Even an akeva has relevance in terms of oila. There's a type of oila that could be an akeva, an oila bird. So the akeva concept isn't foreign, isn't entirely locked out of oila. In which case, there's an element of oila on the mother as well, on the the hegdish, the original hegdish as well. So it can generate a temurah, because in that case it does have kedushas haguf. So Rav Shimon differentiates between the oila. He says oilas and the nekeva has kedushas haguf and can generate a temurah, but not the other two, the pesach, the asham, which have no relevance to nekeva. So it doesn't get kedushas haguf at all, and therefore cannot generate a temurah. Rav Shimon Omer, if he does a nekeva lo'ila say oisa temurah, but lepischa la'shamai, over there, I agree that I hold ein oisa temurah. So I agree with the oila, but not with the pesach and the asham. And he sets down a formula. She'ein lecha davar oisa temurah. The only korban that can make a temurah is ela haroya lihistoiv. So unless it has a kedushas haguf to the point that if you would like to convert it, you would have to let it get a mum to downgrade it to kedushas damim and then convert it to money. Only that indicative of its of the presence of a higher level kedusha, i.e. kedushas haguf, which can be used to generate a temurah. So that applies to the oila, where even if it's an oilas nekeva, you can't just sell it. You have to wait until it gets a mum, because it right now has kedushas haguf. As opposed to the pesach v'asham, which are nekeva, according to Reb Shimon, just sell it off without a mum. You don't have to get a mum in order to make it kedushas damim. It's only kedushas damim to begin with, in which case it can't make it tomorrow. Okay, so according to Tanakama, an akeva as an oila pesach or asham has an element of kedushas haguf, and would require a mum to go sell it. And since then it's Kedushas HaGuf, we can make it TEMURAH. Shimon says only the oil. Amar Rabbi, I take issue with Rabbi Shimon to a certain extent. Einani roya dvarash Rabbi Shimon Pesach. I don't accept Rabbi Shimon's position, who lacks out the Pesach from Kedushas HaGuf. Because I'll tell you why. The fact is that there's a rule. An unneeded Pesach, let's say you have a carbon Pesach, it's after Pesach, you don't need it, it now gets rebranded as a Shlam. That's the halacha. So this Pesach that he designated as a Pesach, which happens to be in a Keva, will attain an element of Kedushas HaGuf. You know why? Because every Pesach really is also a potential Shlamim. And a Shlamim could be in a Keva. Turns out that there is an element of Kedushas HaGuf to this Nekeva Pesach as well, due to the fact that it has within it a potential for Shlamim, which could be in a Nekeva. And therefore Rabbi says, despite the fact that it needs to be mafresh in a Nekeva for a Pesach, it will rise to the level of Kedushas HaGuf, and in order to sell it you have to get a mum to it, and likewise, because it has Kedushas HaGuf, can make it TEMURAH. So that's the third opinion in this discussion. Tanakama says Nekeva as an Oila Pesach for Asham have Kedushas HaGuf. Rabbi Shimon says only the Oila. Rabbi adds the Pesach as well. Ask the Gemara, why did he stop by the Pesach only? Why didn't he voice his opinion regarding the Shlamim, the Asham as well? Well, Rabbi should have added, Einani roya dvarav shel Shimon ba'asham. I'm not agreeing to him by the Asham as well. I hold that even Asham Nekeva has an element of Kedushas HaGuf. You know why? The fact is that a leftover Asham, an unneeded Asham, turns into an oil. That's the halach. Turns out that every Asham has within it a potential for oila too. And already you know that there is a form of oila that could come as an nekeva, an oila bird. So it turns out that the nekeva status isn't a direct contradiction to the Kedushas HaGuf of this Asham, i.e. oila. And therefore, I would say that even if it's mafresh and a kevel asham, there's an element of carbon to it and it has Kedushas HaGuf. So why didn't he voice that opinion as well? The answer is, you're premising that a Moiser Oila turns into an Moiser Asham turns into an Oila. Private Oila? No. Rabbi Soel Rabbanon. Rabbi held like the Rabbanon. The Amr, you say Moisares, the leftovers of the Asham, the Nidvas Tzibur Azli. Yeah, it gets forwarded into the Oila fund, but which Oila fund? The public Oila fund. Okay, so it has potential to become an Oila of that format. Now we all know about TEMURAH b'tzibur. If it's a public carbon, there's no TEMURAH option at all. So you're right, even though an Asham gets transformed into an Oila, but that shouldn't give it the ability to make it TEMURAH, because even when eventually it turns into an Oila, that potential Oila element within it is not a TEMURAH generator. So likewise, this Asham isn't either. Okay, let's go back and reanalyze Reb Shimon's opinion. He says, Yimafresh and Nekeva, for a Pesach, for an Asham, forget about it. There's no Kedushas HaGuf. But an Oila, yeah, Kasaka Daitach. The Gemara figures, you know why? Hainu Tam Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon is based on the following svara. Why is it that Gabi Mafresh and Nekeva Oila say? Mishamocha Oisa TEMURAH. Why is it that when he's mafresh and Nekeva as an Oila can make it TEMURAH? The Iko Shem Oila Aleo Gabi Oila Sa'oid, because there is an element of Oila even on the Nekeva. If it were to be a bird, it could be an Oilas Nekeva. So even this Nekeva, Behema, is connected to carbon Oila somewhat, in which case it gets Kedushas HaGuf. Ask the Gemara. So, despite the fact that in its current form, it doesn't have Hakrava potential, it's a Behema, Oila, Nekeva, but since in some form or fashion there is an element of Oila on this type, whether it's here, whether it's in a different setting, a different context, a different format, i.e. by a bird, that's sufficient to grant it status. So let's look at other similar cases and see if this in fact will fit. Elamiyat, if that's the case. Imagine B'kohen Gadol shehifresh para. Kohen Gadol is meant to bring a par, a male, a cow as a carbon, chatos, and it brings a para, female. Para instead of the par. Para la para, tiktoish. Are you going to tell me it has Kedush Saguf? The Ika Paras Chatas, we find that a para isn't really so far gone. You find a para which is valid as a carbon. You know where? Paraduma. So since a para is valid in some form, in some fashion, it's going to be valid here as well? No. Kacha Bedakabayasi. You're comparing it to our case? No. There, the valid para is in a totally different world. It's paraduma, which is not really an actual carbon. It's called kosher b'kabayis. It's owned by the hekdesh. It's processed outside the Beis Hamikdash. So there's no real linkage, no relevance between the paraduma and the par kohen gadol. Well, kosher b'kabayis have the TEMURAH, because as we know, unless you're an actual carbon, if you're just kosher b'kabayis, you can't make a TEMURAH. So true, we find that a para can be used as a paras chatas, but that's not reason enough to grant kedush aguf, with respect to making a TEMURAH on the para that the kohen gadol will bring instead of his par, because the paraduma is not one that's can make a TEMURAH. Okay. So what about a yachid? Next question. You have a private person. Shefer so'ir l'si rasa. He sinned. He's meant to bring a chatas, a female goat. He brings a male goat. Tigdush. Are you going to say that's kedush aguf in that case as well? Can make a TEMURAH? Because we find that a so'ir is valid in some form, in some fashion, as a chatas. The yika so'ir nasi, a king who sins, he brings a so'ir. Inami, alternatively, suppose the other way around. A nasi, a king, was meant to bring a so'ir, and he by mistake brings a se'ira. Nasi shefer se'ira. With se'ira, he brings a female goat instead of his male. Tigdosh, is it going to have to do saguf? Do yachid mafar se'ira, because in some form, in some context, a female goat is a valid chatas, such as if a yachid needs it. So this format has relevance to akrav, and therefore it has kedush aguf, even though in this particular context it's not appropriate. Says the Gemara, no, you can't compare. Hanit regufaninu. You want that the carbon of the king should have kedusha because of the carbon of the private person, and vice versa. Two different people, two different bodies. One can't really feed off the other. As opposed to our case of a fellow who was mafresh a behema for his oila, instead of a zacha was in a keva, technically he himself, right, can bring a bird oila in some cases. So let's say Rashi brings, let's say he was obligated to bring an oila on account of his mitzvah experience. He's supposed to bring a carbon at the end. He's a wealthy guy. He's meant to bring an animal. You know what? He can turn himself unwealthy in a moment. Give away all his assets. Now he's poor. Now he's able to bring just a bird, which is the proper carbon for a poor man. So within the same person, we have that ability, that potential. Hence, we apply kedush aguf even to his behema, which is in a keva, because, like we said, there is an element of oil even to a keva, even within the same person. He can. Ask the Gemara, another question. Suppose a nasi, a kohen gadol, transgressed. They violated something which triggers a chiyuv al chatas, but they did it before they were appointed into their position. In which case they should bring, the layman's carbon, i.e. a se'ira, female goat. And now they were appointed to their high position. Halach is they have to bring the old carbon, as per their previous status, because that's when they're sinned. And now let's say he sets aside the soyer, which is the wrong one. The zachar, lisi rasai, in order to fulfill his obligation, which is meant to be a seira, tigdash. So he substitutes a seira for a soyer. Tigdash doesn't have kedush aguf, because technically, if he would have sinned right now, he would bring a soyer. So that's an option within the same person, right? If you would have sinned today, you would bring a soyer. No. The fact is, he didn't sin. He's not chayiv in a soyer, so you can't use that as a premise to give kedusha to the soyer. Well, says the Gemara, if that's true, then let's go back to our fellow who was mafresh a behema for Zayla and a keva. You're giving a kedusha guf. Why? Because theoretically he could be bringing a bird, but he's not bringing a bird. In fact, he's a wealthy guy. He doesn't belong bringing a bird. Fact is, he's not fit to bring a bird. He's a wealthy fellow. So how are we using the bird element to justify the animal, to grant kedusha to the animal? He can't really bring a bird oila now. Says the Gemara, he could. Reb Shimon Savar Reb Elazar ben Azariah. Reb Shimon Reb Elazar ben Azariah, the Stanu, teaches us as follows. We have a Mishnah, Rei Alei Oila. A fellow pledges an oila, Yavi Kevis, unless he specifies that it's a bird, he has to bring an animal. Reb Elazar ben Azariah, Omer, no, you can bring even cheapest birds. Cheapest oila, a Torah ibn Ayayna. So, it turns out that even a wealthy fellow can technically bring a bird as well. So within that same person, there is potential for a bird, which can be in a keva. And that's the basis of Shimon's view. And if a person is mafresh in a keva as an oila, even though it's an oilas behem, which is not suitable to come as an keva, but since this person, within his potential to bring an oilas oif, which is in a keva, so there's no contradiction. There's an element of oila under the keva as well, in which case his behemas in the keva will have kedushas aguf, and likewise can make it TEMURAH. Okay, so in conclusion, if a fellow is mafresh in a keva as a oila pesach va'osham, Tanakama says that kedushas aguf. So it has two applications. First of all, you can't just sell it, you have to wait till it gets a mum, which downgrades it to kedushas dam. Number two, you can make it TEMURAH. Reb Shimon says only the oila, and as we explained, because there is an element of kedushas aguf by oila in general, such as if this person chooses to bring a bird, oila saif can be in a keva. Hence, there is kedushas aguf even to the behemoths in the keva as well. Rabbi added that I would say even by the Pesach too, because Pesach and Shlomim are interchangeable, and since the Shlomim can come as in the keva, likewise an element of kedushas aguf on the keva Pesach as well. Okay, speaking of about a person who's magdish in the keva la'oila, here comes a Mishnah. Mishnah Mesechas Shkol. Tanan Hasan. Ha-magdish nechas, fellow pledged all his assets to the Beis HaMikdash. He didn't specify the destination. Is it going to be to the Mizbeach or to the Bedek HaBayis? So what do we do with his possessions? It so happens that he has animals which are tamim, suitable for the Mizbeach. Zacharim, Mekevis, the assumption is, Rashi says, the assumption is Stam Hegdesh Lebedek HaBayis. We assume that he wants it to go to the treasury. But the fact is, if we have an animal which is personally suitable as a carbon, you can't just sell it. You have to ensure that the animal itself somehow ends up on the Mizbeach, despite the fact that he donated to Bedek HaBayis. How do you work this out? Well, you know what you do? You sell it to a person who needs it as a carbon, who will actually bring it on the Mizbeach, and the money is forwarded to the treasury. So you have it both covered. The male animals are sold to those who need an oila, who will take it on the Mizbeach, so you have fulfilled the destiny of the animal itself. And the money will be sent to the treasury as per the person's, the donor's intent. And likewise, when the kevets, which are not suitable for an oila, you sell it to the shlamim customers, with the main niplo, and the monies of these karbanis will be forwarded with all his assets to the lebedek habayis. Rabbi Shua, he disagrees. He says a person wouldn't forego the opportunity to bring his animal as karbanis rather than sending them to the bedek habayis. So he says like this: Rabbi Shua, zucharim atzman yikru oilos. So regarding the zucharim, I agree with Rabbi Lezer, straight up on the mizbeach for the sake of the donor. Unekevais, likewise, yimachru l'tzarchei shlamim. V'yaviv b'bein oilos. An akeva can't be an oila directly, so indirectly, you sell it to a person who needs a shlamim, which ensures that the animal will be placed on the mizbeach, which again is as per the donor's wishes. But v'yaviv b'bein oilos, the money that receives on account of those animals, you convert into an oila, which will be placed on a mizbeach for the sake of the donor. So the oila is the highest form of korban, and that's what we assume he had in mind. And the rest of the assets go to the bedek habayis. Now comes a question. So according to Bishua, apparently we assess this donor's mindset as follows. He really wants all his animals to be oilos. That's what he really wants. The highest korban, it's the best, the highest. So regarding the zacharam, we can fulfill his wishes. A zachar is rise an oila, it goes to his credit. But the nekevas are really not suitable for a korban oila, which he assumingly had in mind. So it's really like rejected from an oila. So it's like a catch-22. He's trying to make an oila out of it, but it's an akeva. So it's like a mafresh nekeva l'oila. It's like a person takes an akeva animal and designates it as an oila. And what happens then? Mafresh nekeva l'oila. We have a Mishnah back on the Fid Ches, Amid Beis, that it's rejected. It becomes dachui. You're attempting to take an akeva and turn it to an oila? That will no longer be roi for hakrava directly. You have to go and convert it to money, and then you can take the money. So how could Rabbi Shua say that the nekevas here will be actualized as shlamims, which means to say that the actual behemoth can be a korban? It's been rejected from korban use because he labeled it as an oila, which it's not suitable for. So it's dachui. It's not kosher for a krav anymore. Amoli Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Abel, Rabbi Yechon, Rabbi Shua. Let's dwell on Rabbi Shua. The Amor says, Zecharim atzmon yikru oilos. This fellow donates all his assets. The Zecharim go directly on mizbeach, because we assume that he really wants all his animals to be oilos. So the question is, fine, the oila is good, but unakeva is heichi mekarven shlamim. How can you take the nekeva and turn them into shlamim, sell them to shlamim customers? Hamekayach kedusha dechuyi ka'asyan. They're products of deficient kedushas. It's been rejected from Hakrava. It was like he labeled it as an oila when it's not suitable for an oila. There's another slightly different version of this question, pretty much the same point, just different words. The fact that Bishua considers this charm as actual oilas. Apparently, the donor had in mind Dush Saguf. How could you take his nekeva, turn him into shlamim, and place him on the mizbeach? In that status, you can't bring it as a korban directly. Send it out to the farm to get a mum, and then redeem it, convert it into money. Amarle. So he says like this: Rabbi Shua, Savalak Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shua follows Rabbi Shimon. The Amar who holds called midid lechazl legufei lo yinachs like dushaguf. He says that if a behemoth is not fit for its intended purpose, it never rises to the level of dushaguf. So all it has is Kedushas Damim, and you're free to sell it to a Shlamim customer. It's not Rav Shimon Omer. As we have back in our Mishnah, not for Talmud Bavli. A similar case, a person who's mafresh in a cave as an asham, don't bother waiting for a mum. Sell it without a mum. Why? Kiva the lechaz in the cave of the asham, since the cave is not ready for an asham, then achslik dush saguf, it never gets dush saguf. Says the Gemara, the Amar Shimon in the cave of the asham. That's true. That according to Shimon, the cave of the asham has that immense deficiency, in which case it never gets dush saguf. Return to Talmud Bavli. The lekashem asham al imay, because there is never a nekeva which is an asham. So there's no element of asham on the mother. Meaning on the nekeva. Aval gab nekeva la'oila. But in our case, where it's a nekeva for an oila, a nekeva isn't completely foreign and a contradiction to an oila, as we explained many times. There's an element of oila on the mother, on the nekeva as well. Because there's some nekeva that could be an oila, some oila that could come as a nekeva, i.e. a bird oila. So I feel Rav Shimon might even in this case, even Rav Shimon would agree that there's just a goof on the mother animal. So back to the question: if you intended there's a goof, and it's not right, it becomes nidche. You can't bring it as a carbon directly. Furthermore, to back up this point, beginning of today's daf, we heard clearly that Rav Shimon, if it takes a behema on a keva for an oila, makes it temurah. Why? Because an oila is very different. And a keva and an oila are compatible. And a getush is a guf. Amar Leis, he says you're right, but there's another version of Rav Shimon, Rav Yeshua, the author of this mission that we're asking on Savlik Idach. There's another version of Rav Shimon, another Tana had a different position of Rav Shimon. The son of Shimon Yehuda quotes Amar Rav Shimon, he said TEMURAH, that even if it's mafresh and a cave or animal for an oila, since it's not roy, it has no p'tus aguf, and it can't make it TEMURAH. Okay, so bottom line, if it's mafresh and a cave for an oila, for an asham, for a pesach, Tanakam says it has p'tus aguf. It can make it TEMURAH. According to Rav Shimon, well, we have one version which says only by oila, because there is a type of oila that can be in a keva, and as we explained, within the same person it's possible. Now we have another shita, according to Rav Shimon, the oilas in the keva will not rise to the level of saguf, and will not be able to make it temurah. Continues the Mishnah. TEMURAH Sasham. So now we have a temurah, which was generated by an asham. So we have a proper asham, a zachar, from which he generated a temurah. Or the vlad of the temurah, vladan, asef kol olam. Next generation, one after, until the end of the line. What happens to all these? Yiruachi istavu. This is halacha Mishim Sinai. Rashi brings that any situation where, if it's a chatas, there is misa, such as the vlad chatas, temurah's chatas. Correspondingly, if we find a similar situation by the asham, you send it to pasture till it gets a blemish, and you channel the money to the oila fund in the Beis Hamikdash, which is called nadava. You use the money to buy karbanis oila when the mizbeach is idle. Yiruachi istavu, you sent out to the farm until they become blemished. V'machru, they are sold off. Yiplu, the meal and nadava, the money is forwarded to the nadava chest. That's the shita of Tanakam. Rebbe Eliezer Emi Yamusa. He says that just like by the chatas there's misa, the same thing with the asham. TEMURAH asham is left to die. Rabbi Elazar Omer, very similar to the first opinion, except that instead of going to the public nadava pushka, Yavi b'dmein oilas, the owner himself will use this money to buy a carbon oila, a donated oila. Now, what's the difference between if it's a personal oila or public oila? We'll see later in the Mishnah. Okay, so part one of the Mishnah discussed a temurahs asham and the vlad temurah, etc., etc. Tanakama says yiru. Rebbe Eliezer says misa. Rebbe Elazar says yiru, and then he used the money for an oila. here comes part B of the Mishnah, very similar. Instead of a Temuras Asham, we have Asham Shemesu Balav. V'shechipru Balav, an Asham whose owner passed away, or whose owner already achieved kapara by means of another carbon. So let's say this one was lost, he brought another one instead, and now he finds this one. Once again, the same exact machlokes with those three opinions. Tanakam says, Yirachi Yistoyev, V'mocher, V'yipu, Davan, Dava. Let it get a mum, channel the money to the Dava. Rav Lezer Eimer Yamusu, Rav Lezer Eimer Yavid Mein Oila, B'damei Oila. Ask the Gemara, the Mishnah, the obvious question. What's the difference between Tanakam who says the money goes on a Dava, which is a donated Oila, versus Rav Lezer who says the owner will bring an Oila. Well, the term Nadava in the Tanakam is also referring to buying Oila. So what's the difference between him and the third Shita? They both seem to be saying the same thing. After it gets a mum, you sell it, the money used to buy Oila and Dava. Ella, rather, a difference is like this. Very much makes a difference whether it's a public Oila or a private Oila. Ella bizman shiba Oila. Difference is that according to Rav Lezer, where it's your own personal donation, you have to treat it as such. Samich aleha, you do the smicha, or maybe nisachim, you bring along the nisachim, the wine, etc. Unisachem mishalai, and you have to sponsor the nisachim. It's your obligation. Imay kayin, and it's so personal that let's say you were a kayin, avidasa v'irushalai, so you can go up to the Beis Hamikdash, irrespective of the point of the year, even though it's not really your rotation, really your turn. But you can choose to be makar of the carbon, you keep the height, it's your privilege to do so. That's only when it's yours. But according to the Tanakama's approach that the money is sent to the public Nadava chest, then it's considered a public offering. In which case it's not connected to you as the owner. There's no smicha. Rashi brings that a carbon tzibur generally doesn't have any smicha. There are two exceptions, Rashi says. Par helam davar shal tzibur on Yom Kippur, and the Sorim Shtalech on Yom Kippur. So generally there's no smicha, and here as well. And he will bring no nesachim for this carbon. Rather, the public will sponsor the nesachim. It's their carbon. And then finally, even if he happens to be a kohen, he can't just keep the carbon. Afapishu kohen, no, it's considered like any other carbon, and it goes into the domain of the whichever group is officiating that week. Avodas avoira, the privilege to do the avoda and the hides, which ultimately go to the kohanim. Shel Anshe Mishmar belongs to the rotation that's serving that week. So the Mishnah spoke about two similar cases. In the first, we have the TEMURAH and the Vlad of the TEMURAH of the Asham. What to do? We have one discussion about that. Nadava, or Oila, or Misa, according to Rabbi Eliezer. And part B of the Mishnah, which speaks about a similar case, an Asham whose owner passed away, etc., where again, what do you do? Oila, Nadava, or Misa. Utzricha, why discuss both, have the machlekes in both cases? So, assumingly, all these are pretty similar. They're, byproducts of the Asham, and whatever happens to one variation happens to the rest. So why do we have to stipulate both cases with their respective opinions? Utzricha, both are needed. The Ashmin and Asham. If only that second case of the Asham that was lost its owner, or the owner had a kapara elsewhere, so perhaps I would say Baha Ka'amar Eliezer Yemusu. Perhaps only in this case would Eliezer apply the din of Misa. Mishum de Gazar. It's based on a Gzeira. Lacha kapara to kapara. Because he prefers not, channeling the carbon to, becoming an oila and all that. Why? Because if we do that after kapara, then you might do the same before kapara, and that's a no-no. So imagine a person had an asham. It disappeared, he brought another one, and he has them both standing here. He might mistakenly say, well, it's an extra asham, and we know what happens to an extra asham. We use its value, we forward its money to channel to the Eilah. And that's not correct at that time, because it's still pre-kapara. The owner hadn't yet actualized any carbon for his asham, so it's not yet ready for that. So perhaps that's Rabbi Eliezer's reasoning. We never allow the unneeded asham to be channeled for an Eilah, because although it's safe to do so, once the kapara had been achieved with the other one, now it's extra, fine, but it might extend itself, and you might actually do it beforehand as well, and that's a problem. But in the first series of cases in the Mishnah, but there's no such concern, because whenever it is, it's not really standing for kapara. It's not suitable for kapara. Temurah of an asham, you can't bring as a carbon, nor can you bring the vlad of the temurah. So Ema Moidilu, perhaps in this case, since there's no concern of confusion, maybe Rabbi Eliezer would agree to Rabbanan, no problem. Just convert it into money, channel it into the Eilah track. Ema Moidilu Rabbanan. Instead of applying Misa, do a Euro, actually Yistavo, and use it for an Eilah. And that's why the Mishnah had to speak about the first case as well, that Rabbi Eliezer insists that it goes Lamisa. On the other hand, Yashmin and Hassan, had we only discussed the first series of cases, welcome Rabban, there would be room to think that only if the Rabban say that the Temurah, the Vlad Temurah, is channeled as an Eilah. Aval Gabi Asham. Moidili Rabbi Eliezer, but in the second case, where you have the actual original Asham, just the owner died, etc., or you had Kapar elsewhere, maybe over there Rabbi Eliezer, Rabban would agree to Rabbi Eliezer. Don't risk channeling it to the Eilah, because ultimately it might cause confusion. They might do the same before the owner had achieved kapara elsewhere, in which case you can't take this asham and convert it to an Eilah. It's meant for an asham. Tzricha, that's why we discuss both cases. To tell you whether it's the actual original asham, which is unneeded, or the temurah of vlad. Either way, we have the same exact machlokes in terms of what's the status of this unneeded or leftover or derivative asham. So in all cases, Rabbanan say you channel it to the Eilah, so you convert it into an Eilah, whereas Rabbi Eliezer consistently says the halacha is it goes Lamisa. Rashi already brought earlier that the Rabbi Eliezer says kechatas ka'asham, whatever happens to a chatas applies to an asham, and a Torah goes Lamisa. Okay, now let's dwell on the vlad of the Temurah. So in the beginning of the Mishnah we have an asham, which generated a Temurah, which had a vlad. So again we have this machlekes, what to do with it. Is it going to be channeled to the Eilah track, or according to Rabbi Eliezer, it goes Lamis? Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav machlekes. This discussion, this machlekes, whether you say Yirachi Yistoib or you apply Misa, Lacha Kapar. That's only after the owner achieved Kapara with his original Asham. Aval Fnei Kapara, Divra Koil Hu Atzma Yikrav Asham. So after Kapara, it's not needed. So then we have difference of opinion what to do. But if he hadn't yet achieved kapara with any, the Barakah all agree. Why convert it? Why apply Misa? Who asks me Krav Asham? This Vlad Temurah can be used in Asham directly. Rashi says we're speaking that the original Asham got lost, so you're not going to use that one. So may as well use this one. Amar Rava, no, for two reasons. Shtei Teshuvas B'Tav. I have two issues with this. First of all, let's realize, where did this Vlad come from? It came from a Temurah, which is an inappropriate procedure. So this fellow who's in need of an atonement, that's why he's bringing an Asham, is going to use a product of a sin, of a transgression, of a Temurah. First of all, they know the miskaper b'davar b'avir. A person should not have kapara from something which was generated by sin, void furthermore. Hatani Rav Chananya l'siyul Rav Shimon Levi. If you recall back on Afid Ches, Rav Chananya had a brisa in support of Shimon Levi. The Amor says that the third generation, when it's so many steps removed from the original, then certainly it doesn't have that certification anymore. It doesn't have that status anymore. The Amar Vlad Rishon Karev. So even the Chachamim over there said that the Vlad of the Shlomim is an actual carbon, but Vlad Sheni in a Karev, but the next generation, the grandson, is not in a Karev. And the same over here, we have a TEMURAH which is sort of the first removed, and we have the Vlad TEMURAH which is twice removed. Of course, you can't use it as a carbon. So just like we have Xer over there, Xer over here, rather, we have to revise our statement. Amar v'nach, Amar Abar, Machlokes Kodim Kapara, Aval HaKapara Hu Atzme Karavayla. When to the Chacham insist that we take the Vlad TEMURAH and we convert it into an Oila, we get it the Mum and we channel the Marit, that's only if it's before Kapara. He hadn't yet achieved Kapara through his Asham, in which case we're a bit cautious. We say, look, don't take this Vlad directly as an Oila, because he might mistakenly, instead of applying it as an Oila, he might use it as an Asham directly, which you can't do. So we keep away from doing it as a direct karm. We do it indirectly. We channel it to an asham, do it to an oila. Aval acha kapara. But once he already achieved kapara, there's no concern that he might use this for kapara as well of an asham. Who asked me karavayla? We have no qualms with taking this Vlad TEMURAH and applying him as an oila directly on the mizbeach. Asked the Gemara, "V'atani of Chanani l'suyul b'Shimon Levi." But what about that brisa? The third generation is worse. Kashi, we leave it unresolved. Boy minei Rabbi Abin bar Chiya Rabbi Abin bar Kahama. He has a question which we actually discussed in the past. Hifresh nekeva l'asham. A fellow took a nekeva and was mafresh as an asham instead of a zachar. He did a nekeva, and we have an offspring which is a zachar. What's his status? Puna mau shikra v'loilo. Can we take him as an oilo directly, or do we say, well, since he's coming from a female asham, which is not suitable, so it taints him as well? Ask the Gemara, V'tiv Shalem, Rabbi Shachanina. Shouldn't we clarify this based on the statement we learned yesterday? The Amar Moeder Eliezer, Ibn Eliezer, who speaks about the Vlad of Oilas and Nekeva being okay, that's only because Oila and Nekeva are sort of compatible, at least in the realm of a bird. So there's an element of Oila on the mother as well, but over here, there's no Nekeva by Asham. So of course, it's totally rejected, and the Vlad as well. Lishmila, he hadn't heard that statement, so wasn't aware of it. So the question is, what's the halacha? So how did he respond? Amar Leisi responds, but no karavayla. Sure, go ahead. Use the Vlad of the Asham Nekeva as an oila. Ask the Gemara, how could that be? How could you say that? Ad kan like Eliezer, ela mafresh Nekeva l'oila. Certainly, Eliezer holds that by the Nekeva l'oila dikashim l'oila, because there's an element of oila on the mother by the bird. Aval gabi asham the lekashim l'oila, but about the asham Nekeva, there's no element of oila on the mother. I feel like Eliezer Moida, even Eliezer would agree. Of course, you can't take Vlad as an oila. Amar Leisi says, no, you're making assumptions. No, you think it's because the mother already has that element? No, time of Eliezer allows the Vlad of the oilas Nekeva to be used as a carbon. It's not because the mother relates to the oila. Rather, it's simply because, look, this animal's okay, he's suitable, go ahead and use him, without respect to where he came from. And that same exact principle applies to the Vlad Asham Nekeva. The fact is, he's a Vlad Zachar, use him as an oila. Look at our Mishnah. The TEMURAH Asham and the Vladon, right? All the generations, that's Seif Kol Oilam. You can't be makro them as an oila. Yavi b'dmei an oila. All agree that the only avenue is convert them to an oila. B'dmei and only their money can be channeled for an oila. We turn to the next one, but the actual animal itself cannot be used as an oila, even though he's fully okay, fully suitable. Apparently even Rabbi Eliezer agrees. Then in this case, since he's coming from an unsuitable source, such as a Asham Nekeva, he's not right for a carbon. Well, he says, no, not so quick. Who says we're speaking about that the Vlad is a Zachar? Maybe the Vlad is a Nekeva as well, that's the issue. My skin, when she held a Nekeva, was speaking that the TEMURAH gave birth to a Nekeva. But if he would be a Zachar, it'd be okay. Come on, he says, you mean until the end of time, all we had are Nekevas? Is that what the Mishnah is talking about? Amalei says, yeah. It's you who comes from Bavel. I'm going to answer likewise, like the way the Babylonians, I'll force the teretz. Can she hold the nekeva say ba'olam? Yeah. Let's say that all we have is nekevas, and that's why there's no option of akrava. But if it were to be a zachar, even though he's coming from a asham nekeva, okay, going to bless her, bring him as a oila directly. Okay, so let's recap. We had a mishnah with an asham which generated a TEMURAH which had vlados. So the TEMURAH is obviously in a cave if she had vlados, so she's not really suitable for a carbon. What about her vlados? 3 shitas. Rabbi Eliezer says Yamusu. Tanakama says you channel its value to the nadava. Rabbi Eliezer says channel its value to an oila, personal oila. There are several differences between a personal oila and a public oila. And we clarified that the same discussion applies to the TEMURAH and the Vlad TEMURAH, as well as to the actual original asham, who for some reason is not needed, the owner died, or got a kapara elsewhere. Same exact machlekes applies there as well. We had a discussion in the Gemara whether there's any option of actually using the Vlad TEMURAH directly as an asham, as one version, or as an oila, going to the second version. We had a kasha on that. We went back to our old discussion. What about the nekeva la'asham, which had a vlad, not a TEMURAH, but the actual nekeva la'asham that had a vlad? So one sheet says not a problem. The vlad is a zachar. According to Blazer, it's fine. But the other sheet said no. Blazer is only based on the fact that the mother relates to the oila world, which doesn't apply by the asham. Asham nekeva has no suitability, not as an asham, not as an oila. In which case, even Blazer would agree, the vlad has to be converted into its value, which will be used to buy an oila, but directly you can't bring it as an oila. All the best to you, Natzlachar.